Hello everyone, and welcome to Plugged into Heritage. Today we are filming from the Crafted Images Pottery Studio, located in Codys, Queens County, New Brunswick. Heather MacAlpine is hard at work, working on the stemless goblets for the Spirits of Gagetown fundraiser. She has been a potter for over 37 years, and she graduated from the New Brunswick College of Craft and Design. We're really excited about our Spirits of Gagetown fundraiser, and we think you guys will love it. We've partnered with Crafted Images Pottery and Gagetown Distilling and Cidery to offer an amazing bundle of goodies, including stemless goblets and your choice of vodka, gin, moonshine, or apple brandy, as well as many other goodies. So Heather, what can you tell us about the pottery making process today?
Well, welcome Victoria, and welcome everybody that's watching this video. Welcome to my studio in Codys. I've started off, I've done up a few little balls of clay for the stemless goblets, and these are between 3/4 of a pound to a pound when they're wet, and then when they actually come out of the kiln after they've gone through all of the drying processes, they're a 1/2 pound or a little less than 1/2 pound. So I just cut them. My clay comes bagged, and I cut them in sort of square cubes, but I round them off the corners and make a ball. So I'm going to throw the clay down. I want it to stick on the wheel head. And I'm going to turn my wheel on, and just start off. The first thing that you have to do is you have to center. So that's getting your ball of clay perfectly in the center, and that does take a little while when you're learning how to throw, and that's really important so that your piece can be uniform and it's not sort of half-sided. And then the next thing that I'm doing is I'm coning the clay. So I'm bringing it up to align the particles and to get it all flowing in the direction that I want it. And also too, if there's any air bubbles, I can feel those air bubbles and take them out with a pin tool. So I've done that a couple of times. So I'm happy with where my ball of clay is at. So I'm going to open it up. This is a small vessel, so I'm just going to draw my finger across just a short little ways and just kind of impress the bottom, and actually going in the opposite direction. And for these it's not as important, but for plates and bigger bottomed items it's compressing the clay, and hopefully there won't be any cracking. So then I'm actually going to squeeze my fingers, the pads of my fingers, and they're directly opposite each other. And I'm squeezing that clay from the bottom and bringing it up. And I do use a sponge to keep water always at my fingertips. And I'm just squeezing that clay between, and my fingers are totally opposite each other, and bringing the clay up and just straightening up the edge. So a couple of throws. You don't want the water on the clay for a really long time because it'll absorb into the clay and then weaken the actual pot, and then it'll make it crack or slump. And I'm using a sponge on a stick to clean out the water from the inside. I'll just use the sponge that I was working with to clean off the outside. And I'm just going to take a little bit off the bottom excess clay. I'll later on be trimming a little bit of a foot. And I'm just going to dry my hands a little bit, and I just use fishing line and you can use wire, and I'm pulling it quite taut and just pulling it across a couple of 2 or 3 times to take that bond away from because the pot's totally bonded to the wheel head. And I'm taking my lovely little pot lifters that work great on small items and just putting it over on the wear board, and then I grab another ball of clay and continue the whole process all over again. The next step is trimming and doing some stamping, and these pots have been sitting all night and usually upside down so that the whole area will dry evenly, and it's become leather hard or just a little under leather hard. And I've got a pad of clay on my wheel head, and I'm going to draw some rings just to give me a guideline to where the center is in this pad of clay. And people use a variety, and this is a pin tool that I'm working with. And this pad's fairly wet, and so I think it's probably got enough moisture on there to just, it'll stick like you can hardly get it off. So I want to try to, with the guidelines of the circles, find the center, or close to the center as possible, because you always alter your pot, and it looks like it's way off because this whole bottom is off. But so I'm using a trimming tool, and I trim a foot on all of my pots. So I'm just gonna do that, and I recycle all of my clay. The clay goes into this bucket right beside me, and it goes into water, and it'll get poured out onto a plaster vat and be recycled. So the only clay that I don't recycle is fired clay, because I don't really have a way to recycle that. So I'm doing like an inside ring, a little bit of an indentation. So this foot that's raised will be the part that's sitting on the kiln shelf, and that won't have any glaze on it, but all the other parts will be glazed. So I'm just cleaning it up as I go, and I'm going to show you a little bit of chattering, if this is if this will chatter for me. I usually chatter, and it's just a lovely texture that I put on a lot of my pots. There we go. Chatter for me a little bit more. There, you can slightly see it. This pot is not quite dry. Anyway, the next thing that I do, I'm going to take it off, lift it off, and I'm going to sign the bottom, and I always put Crafted Images NB on the bottom. And some people have stamps, and everybody does their own thing, whatever they want to do. I'm going to clean up the rim with my sponge. And then I'm just going to put a bat, and this is what I throw large objects on when I can't use the pot lifters, and my banding wheel. And I work with stamps. So you can see the bowl of stamps here. Some of them I made myself, but quite a few of them are, this one here I carved out myself. It's a fish, and there's a variety of different ones, but a lot of them are, this one here is a turtle. This one doesn't, and this one here I use a lot, that one. And actually maybe I'll use that one. I went to an auction and found this antique chocolate mold, And these are very three-dimensional, so I just press clay in. Some of them have good long handles, and I use them for my stamp work, and I use a variety. They're all intermixed and switched up, and so let's see. I'm going to use this one at the bottom, sort of like a little scallop at the bottom. And sometimes I'll put 3 or 4 different stamps on a pot. Sometimes I might just put one. Depends on the size of the pot. And I'm holding the pot from the inside because I am pressing fairly hard. And this one's kind of looks like a fleur-de-lis, but I love it. It's a very nice stamp. And I use it quite a lot on mugs. So it's going to look really nice on this stemless wine goblet. And actually the goblets, they're going to be all different. I'm going to switch them up, put different stamps on them, different colorants, and some of them are going to have my cat, they'll be cat ones too. We've come out to the kiln room and we're going to open up our bisque. And we had actually I'm going to show you what we put in the kiln. After those pots that I had trimmed, they dry for the better part of a week. It depends on how much humidity and how warm it is and that sort of thing. In the summertime, they don't dry that fast, but in the wintertime when the wood stove's on, they dry really quickly. So this is bone dry. This would have been put in the kiln, and this is just a small kiln that I'm working in with right now. And it takes about 6-7 hours to fire a bisque. And on the top is a big nacho platter, and you can see the pattern in the nacho platter and the whiteness of the porcelain clay. Let's just set that off to the side. And I'm going to show you, this cone broke off a little bit, but it looked like this prior to going in the kiln. And when it gets up to temperature, it bends, and I know it's time to turn the kiln off. So we can take, and this is all done with shelves and posts. And actually, well, that's right. I'm going to take the shelf off and put this down here. And you can see the posts that divide the stemless wine goblets are on the next shelf, and there could be something else below them. And you put your post in according to the height of the pot. And I'm going to unload these, put them over where I'm going to decorate. Okay, the next process is I'm going to put a little bit of wax resist on the bottom of each pot. And this is the last one that I've finished all the other ones that I've taken out of the kiln. And so this is dried a little bit, so I can turn it up the other way. And I'm going to put some, I work with blues and greens a lot. So this is an oxide wash. So this is actually cobalt, powdered cobalt, magnesium, and a little bit of nephsi. And it's just mixed with water, so it's kind of like a watercolor. So I'm going to get a little bit on my brush. And this doesn't have to be perfectly in the center, but I just brush it on. I brush the colorant on where I want it to go. And the bisque is very porous, so it just sucks that stain and water right into it. And actually this is where you have to be careful not to touch the stain too much, because it's just like a fine powder that's sitting on the surface of the pot, and you can easily get that little powder to fall off, and then you've got colorant where you really don't want it. And then I work with a dark green with my darker blue, and then I have a pastel green and a pale blue. So just a little bit of an accent color. And then I'll put some blue on the rim. The stemless goblets are going to be all a little different. I'll have blues and greens and some cat. I mix my own clear glaze, and it comes just basically like a recipe in your kitchen. It's got different ball clays, zinc, talc, kaolin, and silica, and that's all mixed in water. And it so I take tongs, take my pot, dip it in, shake it out a little bit, and then it's all ready. I've got to wipe off the bottom before I put it in the kiln. And also, as when it's totally dry, if there's any drips, then I'll wipe down those drips and make sure the bottom is wiped. And then it goes back in the kiln again.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you everyone for watching. These are Heather's final pieces, and my, aren't they beautiful? I can't wait to see which one comes in my package. If you would like to order your own, you can contact Queens County Heritage Courthouse Museum at 488-2483, or check us out online at queenscountyheritage.com. The deadline for ordering is July 15th.